You Argent Spiritual Alert. Something massive is set to shift on the 25th of August. And almost nobody sees it coming. But you. You were marked for this moment before you were even born. This isn't just a date, it's a divine appointment hidden in plain sight. Most people will treat it like any other Monday. But for you, chosen one, it's a portal disguised as routine. This is not the time to be casual, distracted, or asleep. Heaven has been whispering, the earth has been groaning, and now the signal is being released. The 25th of August is your spiritual ignition point. It's quiet, it's subtle, but it will change everything if you respond. Will you hear it, or will you miss the moment that was custom-made for your calling? You weren't created to fit in. You weren't born to scroll past signs from heaven. You were set apart for such a time as this. So if your spirit is already sensing it, comment 777 below to confirm your alignment with what God is about to do. And to those who've supported this channel through Super Thanks, thank you deeply. Your generosity is more than support. It's spiritual fuel. Now stay with me, because in the next moments, I'm going to show you exactly what God is asking you to do on the 25th of August to unlock what's already been written with your name on it. Ready? Let's go deeper. God's chosen ones. You were set apart for the 25th of August. Here's what you must do now. You weren't chosen to run from this world. You were set apart to walk right back into it with a different fire in your eyes. You were not preserved to avoid the battle, but to carry a torch through it. While others drown in noise, your silence becomes sacred. While many chase recognition, your reward was revelation. And now, the time has come for your obedience to speak louder than their applause. The true mission was never about the spotlight. It doesn't come wrapped in praise or perfection. It begins when a soul trapped in shadows finally breathes, because your presence reminds them of light. It ignites when someone drowning in silent despair finally hears your voice steady, clear, and battle-worn, because you dared to stand still in the fog when everyone else ran from it. Is it any wonder you've been misunderstood? You've walked through confusion so thick it almost broke you, but it didn't. Why? Because that confusion wasn't meant to defeat you, it was meant to prepare you to lead others through theirs. The chaos you endured was the boot camp for your calling. What if the very darkness you once feared was the same darkness you're now called to illuminate? Jesus, in Matthew 8:24-26, was found sleeping in the boat while a violent storm raged. The disciples panicked, but Jesus spoke peace because he was peace. That is your assignment now, not to end every storm, but to carry a frequency that shifts the atmosphere within it. Blessed are the peacemakers, he said in Matthew 5-9, for they shall be called the children of God. And let's be real, the world didn't exactly roll out the red carpet for you. It dismissed you, silenced you, even punished you for seeing too deeply in a culture built on denial. You were mocked when you chose silence, laughed at when you followed intuition, dismissed when you trusted what couldn't be explained. But isn't that what they did to Noah too? For decades he built the ark in silence, while the world laughed until the rain came, Genesis 6:7. But now, watch how the tides are turning. The very ones who mocked your spiritual sensitivity are crumbling under their own confusion. The ones who once rolled their eyes at your peace are now craving it in the middle of their panic. And the ones who called your surrender weak are standing on the edge of their own spiritual cliffs. unsure which direction to leap. And still, even after all they did, you care. That's the real difference between those who are called and those who are chosen. You still carry compassion in a world that has tried to harden you. And make no mistake, that's not a flaw. That's divine power wrapped in mercy, as Psalm 34:18 reminds us. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. That nearness is what you carry now. You've become a walking answer to a prayer someone hasn't even said aloud yet. To give this even more weight, look at humanitarian and activist Leymah Gbowee, a Nobel Peace Prize winner from Liberia. She once said, "You can never leave footprints that last if you are always walking on tiptoe." Her boldness and refusal to remain silent during a brutal civil war catalyzed a women-led peace movement that stopped a genocide. Her courage wasn't born in comfort, it was carved in conflict, just like you. But on the other end of the spectrum, history warns us too. Elizabeth Holmes, once hailed as a visionary in biotechnology, manipulated the world with deception. Her company Theranos promised to revolutionize healthcare, but behind closed doors, it was built on lies. Her downfall was swift and brutal. What does this teach us? Gifting without character is dangerous. Purpose without purity always self-destructs. So now we arrive at a divine filter moment. Just because you were called to love doesn't mean you're called to reconnect. Just because someone returns with words doesn't mean they carry repentance. Some may return with true remorse, but many others come only because the light in you exposes the darkness in them. Discern the difference. In Luke 6:28, Jesus said, "Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you." But he never said give everyone access. Even he walked away when a town had no faith. Mark 6:5-6. You're not called to carry people who were never willing to walk. So here's the prophetic charge for the 25th of August. Guard your grace like it's gold. Let your peace be your weapon. Let your discernment speak louder than your desperation. You were chosen not because you were perfect, but because you were purified through fire. You are the evidence that God still sends forerunners into broken places. You're not here to prove your worth. You're here to reflect His glory. Even in your weariness, you still carry water for the thirsty, but have you realized yet that someone's survival is connected to your obedience? Could it be that your quiet endurance was never just about you, but about who would find hope through your life? Rise, not in ego, but in holy resolve. This moment was crafted with your name on it. The world may have doubted you, but heaven never did. There are some people you simply can't bring with you. The ones who mock what they can't understand, who cling to bitterness like it's a shield, who mislabel your discernment as arrogance. They were never assigned to your next and chosen one. Hear this loud in your spirit. You've done well. Truly. You survived what would have broken others. You stood in winds meant to dismantle you. You didn't fold. You didn't disappear. And even when no one clapped for your courage, you kept walking. Have you noticed how, when the room gets dark, people instinctively search for someone steady, not loud, not flashy, just steady? You're that person now. Not because you demanded the role, but because you became it in the shadows. You're not just prepared, you are the assignment. There's been a cosmic recalibration. And whether or not people are ready to admit it, the world has shifted. Can you feel it? That silent pressure pressing on your chest. The heaviness that lingers even after a good day. It's not just a bad mood. It's not just personal chaos. Something much larger is stirring in the unseen. A distortion like static in the spiritual signal has blanketed the earth, twisting clarity into confusion. Globally, People are growing reactive, impatient, erratic. They scroll, ping, distract, not to enjoy, but to escape. Even leaders, once full of wisdom, now second-guess their calling. Healers are burnt out. Empaths are shutting down. And maybe you've asked, why am I so drained when I haven't done anything wrong? Why does everything feel heavy all at once? Romans 8:22 gives us insight. We know that the whole creation has been groaning, as in the pains of childbirth, right up to the present time. What you're feeling isn't weakness, it's the contraction before delivery. The earth isn't breaking, it's birthing. And the pressure you feel is proof that you're positioned near the crowning moment. That's why this isn't the time to shrink. Like the giant sequoia trees of California, some of the largest living organisms on Earth, you've spent years growing deeper instead of wider. These trees only grow when fire sweeps the land, because the heat unlocks their seeds. Your trials were not wasted. They were activation chambers. You were never waiting. You were germinating. So why now? Why this turbulence? Because heaven is calling the silent ones to speak without words. The ones who can walk into a room and recalibrate it with presence alone. Isaiah 30:15 reminds us, "In quietness and in trust shall be your strength." You are not being summoned to fight as the world fights. You're being sent to stabilize atmospheres, to embody peace under pressure. Think of the dove, not often seen as a warrior. Yet when the flood waters ceased, Noah sent a dove to search for land, Genesis 8:8-11, and it was the dove, not the raven, who brought back proof of restoration. It's a reminder. God sends the gentle ones when the chaos settles. In moments like this, when chaos blurs, rolls, and truth trembles under distortion, the Spirit cries for clarity that doesn't scream, it sings. In the German film Silent Light, Stellet Licht, 2007, a Mennonite farmer is torn between duty and desire. The entire film is bathed in silence, in long pauses, in still frames of fields and sky, yet it becomes a powerful parable of quiet repentance and restoration. In one unforgettable sheen, the silence becomes so intense, it feels like a hymn being sung through stillness. That moment doesn't need words because love, grief, and calling are all felt in the space between the sounds. You don't need to shout to be heard. You are the hymn now. The ones assigned to your voice will hear it even in silence. And perhaps the most important question of all, if not you, then who? If not now, then when? Could it be that everything you've endured was not punishment but preparation? 1 Peter 2:9 says, "You are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of Him who called you out of darkness into His wonderful light." That light isn't something you carry, it's something you are. So now, chosen one, it's time. Not next week, not when things feel stable again. Right now. The world needs frequency holders, not fame seekers. People who can reset spiritual gravity in spaces where everything feels off-kilter. You've been trained in hidden places. You've been taught in the fires no one saw. You were sculpted in silence, so your presence could become a trumpet. Don't wait for the world to hand you a microphone. Walk like the echo of heaven is already behind you. This is your signal. This is your moment. You were not sent here to survive. You were sent here to shift. You were not born for comfort. You were born to carry fire into cold places. So, rise. Rise not with noise, but with weight. Let your stillness interrupt the chaos. Let your clarity interrupt their confusion. Let your presence remind them of the God who still sends people like you, not to escape the battle, but to win it. What the world needs right now is not more shouting, not more spectacle, but stillness that carries substance, not performers but anchors. And that's what you are, a living anchor in a destabilized spiritual ecosystem. You're not just standing still, you're stabilizing frequency. You're not loud because you don't care. You're quiet because you've been internally recalibrated. In the architecture of heaven, you are a load-bearing beam positioned in such a way that, if you move, the structure around you begins to fracture. That's why your presence in certain spaces feels so heavy, because without saying a word, you are holding up foundations others don't even realize are crumbling. The first pushback you get when speaking truth is not rejection, it's confirmation. You'll know you've struck a deep vein when you feel the atmosphere shift the moment your words leave your mouth. Ever notice how the tension in the room tightens? How do faces change? Breathing slows, and the air itself contracts. That's not paranoia. That's the resonance. Luke 12:51 says, "Do you think I came to bring peace on earth? No. I tell you, but division." The truth isn't just comfort. It disrupts, and when you deliver it, you're not simply being bold, you're operating like a spiritual defibrillator, shocking dormant hearts back into rhythm. But just like in cardiology, not every heart responds the same way. Some people aren't resisting you, they're resisting what your presence is, awakening inside of them. Many will interpret awakening as attack. Why? Because truth often threatens the emotional architecture they built to survive. When you question their lie, they feel like you've attacked their identity. But that's not your burden to carry. 1 Corinthians 3-6 reminds us, "I planted the seed, Apollos watered it, but God has been making it grow." That's your role, to plant with precision, not to bulldoze with pride. Awakening isn't about flooding someone with revelation. It's about finding that one crack in their armor where light can quietly slip in. So, how do you respond when someone gets defensive? You soften the edge, not your message, but your posture. Your goal is not to prove, but to pause. One moment of genuine curiosity can interrupt a lifetime of inner resistance. A single sentence, gently offered, can open a shadow long enough for it to start unraveling. I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just noticing the reaction. What do you think that's really about? That's not manipulation. That's mastery. And mastery is not about dominance. It's about knowing when to plant and when to walk away. Even Jesus told his disciples in Matthew 10:14, "If anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, leave that home or town and shake the dust off your feet." 1:5. Not every field is fertile. Not every door was meant for you to knock twice. The point of your calling isn't to be thanked. It's to be faithful, to give this weight in our current world. Consider a voice not often quoted in Christian spaces, Niloufar Rahmani, the first female fixed-wing Air Force pilot in Afghanistan. Despite death threats, exile, and international resistance, she once said, "I knew that if I stopped, I wouldn't just be breaking my own future, I'd be breaking the path for every girl watching." She didn't yell, she flew, and her flight itself became a message louder than speeches. Are you beginning to realize that your stillness might be the earthquake someone else needs? Could it be that your calmness is more prophetic than your preaching? Is it possible that God has made you a mirror not to reflect yourself, but to reveal what others refuse to see? Isaiah 55:11 declares, "So is my word that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire." You're not here to convert everyone. You're here to carry clarity like oxygen into spiritually suffocating places. Whether they inhale it is not your responsibility. This is your moment of divine deployment. You were not designed to bend under pressure. You were engineered to hold divine weight. You were not trained in silence to remain silent. You were trained so that even your stillness would speak. So rise, not to perform but to anchor, not to argue but to shift. You were sent to be the steady hand in trembling times, and the earth is waiting for your stillness to move mountains. Some people won't understand your shift. They'll mislabel your calm as arrogance, your clarity as control, your boundaries as pride. Let them. Their discomfort is not your assignment. You weren't chosen to be liked. You were appointed to be effective. And effectiveness rarely feels comfortable to those invested in confusion. The moment you feel tension after speaking the truth, that's your confirmation. That discomfort in the air, that energetic static, that's what it feels like when spiritual architecture starts to crack. You're not causing destruction, you're revealing instability. And you're not here to bulldoze. You're here to hold a presence so powerful it makes the lie feel uneasy in its own skin. When you walk into a room and everything tightens, that's not opposition. That's exposure. As Romans trees, do this. The night is nearly over. The day is almost here. So let us put aside the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light. You don't even need to raise your voice. You are the disruption. The clarity you carry threatens the illusions people built to survive. But what if I told you that their attacks aren't really about you? What if their reaction is actually a reflection of what their spirit recognizes and their ego rejects? Jesus was accused of being mad. In Mark 3:21, his own family said, "He is out of his mind." So if they questioned the Son of God, don't be shocked when they question you. The truth has always sounded like rebellion to those invested in the status quo. Right now, many chosen ones have felt strange, not sad, not lazy, not broken, just still. Like your soul has been pressing the brakes while the world races ahead. You weren't being left behind. You were being held. That was divine pause, not paralysis. Could it be that your numbness wasn't stagnation but sacred incubation? Have you mistaken your stillness for weakness when it was actually spiritual recovery? And is it possible that tomorrow the silence breaks, not because noise returns, but because purpose does? Psalm 46:10 commands, "Be still and know that I am God." That knowing, not doing, was your training ground. You were being tuned for clarity, not movement. You were being grounded, not in activity, but in authority. To understand the power of spiritual presence, look at Desmond Doss, a U.S. Army medic during WWIE, a Seventh-day Adventist. Doss refused to carry a weapon, yet in the Battle of Okinawa, he ran into enemy fire over and over, saving 75 men without firing a single bullet. He once said, "While everyone else is taking life, I'm going to be saving it." His presence didn't conform, it transformed. He was mocked, hated, and nearly court-martialed. But in the end, it was his unshakable stillness that saved lives and changed minds. Contrast that with Charles Ponzi, the infamous conman behind the original Ponzi scheme. Born in Italy and promising quick riches in 1922nd America, Ponzi lured thousands into financial ruin by exploiting illusion and urgency. His downfall came quickly, and the name Ponzi has since become synonymous with deception. What was his fatal flaw? He used charisma without character and presence without principle, a dangerous counterfeit to true calling. That's why your presence matters so much, because it's rooted in something real, something ancient, something eternal. John 1-5 says, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And you, chosen one, are that light, not because of what you do, but because of who sent you." The stillness is over. The silence has served its purpose. Now, rise, not to explain yourself, but to embody your assignment. You are not here to conform. You are here to confront. And the tension you feel, that's not your enemy, it's your cue. The earth doesn't need another voice shouting into the void. It needs your presence to shift the atmosphere. You were not born to move with the crowd. You were born to anchor heaven in places where the ground still shakes. So rise, with clarity, with conviction, with the full weight of who you are. Your stillness was never silence. It was God holding you in place until now. You thought the last few months were just a frustrating delay, didn't you? Like everything inside you had gone silent, like life hit pause and forgot to press play again. But what if that stillness wasn't a mistake, but a sacred strategy? You weren't paused. You were being prepared. The silence wasn't abandonment. It was an incubation, a womb of stillness so deep that even your prayers started echoing, but heaven heard them not through noise, but through your surrender. Stillness is not stagnation. It's compression before combustion. You were being tucked into the soil like a seed, and now the shell is beginning to crack. The 25th of August isn't just another day. It's a divine timestamp, a coded reactivation, a turning point. The ignition you thought was delayed is already happening, not in your schedule, but in your spirit. Have you already started to feel it? That flicker of awareness in your chest, that sudden pressure, like something's waking up inside you before you can put words to it. Could it be that what you're feeling isn't anxiety, but acceleration? Romans 8:11 says, "If the spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you, he who raised Christ from the dead will also give life to your mortal bodies." This is the Spirit's quickening, a divine voltage running through your system. It might show up as a burst of energy after weeks of exhaustion, or an unexplained urgency to shift direction, build something, say something, or leave something behind. The signal will be subtle, but it will be undeniable, like the soft cracking of ice before it breaks apart in spring. Others might not hear it, but you will. Because the signal was never meant for the crowd, it was sent to those who've been in divine hibernation. And in nature, there is a creature that mirrors this moment with eerie precision: the tardigrade, also known as the water bear, one of the smallest but most indestructible organisms on Earth. It can survive radiation, freezing, boiling, even the vacuum of space. But it doesn't survive by fighting, it survives by pausing. When environments become too hostile, it enters a state of suspended animation, waiting patiently for conditions to shift. And when they do, it reawakens fully intact, fully ready. You've been like that, not dead, not broken, but hidden in holy preservation. And now, the spiritual climate has shifted, and your inner system knows it's time. In Luke 1:41, the moment Mary greets Elizabeth, the baby leaped in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. This is that kind of moment when something you've been carrying in silence leaps suddenly with recognition. To understand the sacred tension between stillness and power, look at a rarely referenced masterpiece, the 2018 Polish film Corpus Christi, Boże Ciało, based on a true story. It follows a young ex-convict who impersonates a priest and ends up changing an entire village. In one unforgettable scene, he simply stands in silence in front of a grieving family. No sermons, no shouts, just presence. And in that quiet moment, the village begins to heal, because sometimes God uses the unqualified and the still to ignite transformation. Isn't that the exact kind of moment you've been sensing? Not loud, not obvious, but soul shaking. 1 Kings 19:12 reminds us, after the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. That whisper is your signal. Don't miss it waiting for a shout. You're not feeling strange for no reason. You're not restless by accident. The inner pulses are divine instructions, gentle, but precise. The ones who are still asleep won't notice them. But you're not everyone. You've been consecrated in secret for an assignment that begins now. The 25th of August is not just a calendar date. It's a spiritual ignition point. The switch has been flipped. The dormant has become dynamic. The hidden is now holy ground. So rise not with panic, but with precision. Rise with a knowing that defies your feelings. You are not waiting anymore. You are activating. Your stillness was sacred. But now, your steps are prophetic. Some of you didn't even realize how burned out you were until the spark came back. You were functioning, smiling, producing, surviving, but deep inside, your flame was flickering. And now, something has reignited. But here's the thing about true clarity. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just refuses to let you settle. It won't let you numb yourself into the life you've outgrown. If tomorrow feels different, don't resist it. If your body feels restless or your spirit feels on edge, don't dismiss it. What if that pressure isn't anxiety, but acceleration? What if the sudden unease isn't disruption but divine dislodging? Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us, there is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. And the season of stillness has reached its expiration. The divine algorithm has shifted. You're no longer cloaked. You've been raindexed in heaven's frequency grid. And here's a sacred mystery. Most people never learn about being chosen. The path does not become clearer by walking it alone. Your destiny sharpens every time you help someone else see theirs. The more you guide, the more your own map unfolds. This is what psychologists refer to as the mirror neuron effect. When you speak truth into someone's confusion, the brain's empathy circuits activate not just in them, but in you. In spiritual terms, it's a divine feedback loop. It's heaven's algorithm for expansion. Give, and it shall be given unto you. Luke 6:38. But in this case, you're giving clarity and receiving deeper clarity in return. You thought your purpose was only about protecting your own energy, managing your healing, and figuring out your next steps in silence. And, yes, that was part of the preparation. But now, something deeper is being activated. You were not just chosen to survive. You were chosen to reflect, and reflection sharpens your vision. Have you been waiting for perfect clarity before taking action? Could it be that what you seek will only come as you help someone else find their way? What if your next step isn't found in isolation, but in the act of illumination? And is it possible that every time you guide someone else, you're guiding yourself home? Proverbs 11:25 declares, whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. Every time you spark awakening in someone else, a dimension of your own soul gets recalibrated. It's like your internal lens gets refocused. Your mission isn't solidified by perfection, it's refined through service. Sister Gerard Fernandez, a Catholic nun from Singapore who ministered to 18 death row inmates over 4 decades, including one of the country's most notorious killers. She didn't wait until she had all the answers. She simply showed up, listened, and shared grace. In an interview, she said, When you walk with someone in darkness, you begin to see what light really means. Her clarity deepened, not in distance, but in connection. And your mission will too. In architecture, there's a concept called load path redistribution. When one part of a structure is strengthened, the pressure redistributes and lightens the load elsewhere. That's what happens in the spirit. When you lift someone else in truth, the load on your own heart shifts, and suddenly, what feels heavy becomes light. Isaiah 58:10 says, "If you spend yourselves on behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness." This is the divine blueprint. You don't wait until you shine to serve. You serve and your light rises while you're doing it. So don't fall for the myth of readiness. You're not waiting to be qualified. You're being sharpened by obedience. And every time you reflect truth into someone's chaos, your own alignment locks into place like a sacred gear clicking into rhythm. This is your moment to stop waiting and start reflecting. The fire is back. The signal is clear. And your next step isn't found in isolation. It's released through impartation. So rise, speak, reflect, illuminate. You've been hidden long enough. Your light has recalibrated. Now let it shine. What you give is who you become, and what you release into others becomes the very path you walk. That's how this sacred mission expands, not through control, but through connection. Every breakthrough you witness in someone else becomes reinforcement for your own. Every question they ask pulls an answer from the depth of your calling. And when that answer surfaces not from your intellect, but from your spirit, your own path lights up like a lantern. It was never about saving everyone. That was never your burden. And it was never about convincing them either. It's about presence. A presence so grounded in divine clarity that when you walk into someone's storm, you don't shout over it. You shift the entire atmosphere. You carry a signal. And when that signal is released, something in the field begins to tune itself. Isaiah 50:4 says, "The sovereign Lord has given me a well-instructed tongue, to know the word that sustains the weary." You don't have to explain everything. You just have to be in tune, because when your message hits someone's soul, when it lands in the middle of their pain, something awakens. And in that moment, you're not just ministering to them, you're watching a deeper part of yourself come alive. The world has taught you to hoard your energy, to preserve it, to protect it. But in the kingdom of God, clarity doesn't shrink in movement, it multiplies. Could it be that your clarity was never designed to be private? Have you mistaken boundaries for disconnection? What if your next revelation is hidden in someone else's eyes? What if you've been praying for an answer, but it's wrapped inside someone you're about to help? Proverbs 4:8-10 reminds us, "The path of the righteous is like the morning sun, shining ever brighter till the full light of day." Your journey isn't a solo climb. It's a shared rhythm, one breakthrough at a time. And when someone finally sees themselves clearly because of something you said, you'll realize this was never just about your growth. It was always about the field you were sent to cultivate. To reinforce this truth, look at the story of Bryan Stevenson, the civil rights lawyer and founder of the Equal Justice Initiative, known for defending the wrongfully convicted and advocating for justice reform in America. Stevenson once said, "Each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done." He didn't just offer legal arguments. He offered presence, a non-judgmental witness in systems built on shame. His clarity grew deeper as he gave others the courage to see themselves differently. That's what you're doing too. But while some rise into light, others descend into deception. Anna Sorokin, who posed as a wealthy German heiress, Anna Delvey, and manipulated her way into New York's elite social and financial circles. She stole millions, leaving behind a trail of confusion, betrayal, and ruined relationships. Why? Because her identity was built on illusion, not assignment. And when exposure came, it didn't just cost her credibility, it collapsed the false world she built. This is why your assignment is not for the masses. It's for the remnant, the call, the chosen, the ones who won't use their voice to build altars to self, but altars to truth. Matthew 22:14 declares, "Many are called, but few are chosen." Not everyone will feel this call, and even fewer will answer it. Because this mission doesn't come with instructions, it doesn't come with guarantees, and it doesn't knock twice. So why do you feel it? Why has your heart been trembling at invisible frequencies? Because you're one of the few who were built for this. This is your signal. This is your summons. This is your moment to activate. You are not here to be passive. You are here to be prophetic. You're not just carrying a message. You are the message. Your field is ready. The harvest is waiting. And the ones who need you won't recognize themselves until you show up. So, rise. With fire in your lungs and clarity in your hands. The call didn't come to many. It came to you. You're not watching this by mistake. Your presence here was pre-written. Your spirit recognized this moment before your mind did. That strange weight you've been carrying, that silent ache that nothing seemed to explain, it's because this isn't just another message. This one has your name on it. Some people won't understand what this means. And that's okay, because this was never meant for the masses. Most people can't handle the weight that comes with divine clarity. They confuse comfort with peace, and illusion with truth. When truth disrupts the stories they've built their identity around, they run, or worse, they attack. They label, they mock. But you didn't run. You stayed. Isaiah 43:2 echoes over your life. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. And the fire didn't consume you. It commissioned you. You were chosen for this not because you were perfect, but because you were preserved. Others saw the storm and turned back. You walked through it, not with a sword in your hand, but with your heart wide open. That's why your presence carries weight now. Because you didn't just survive, you absorbed wisdom in the shadows. And you didn't let it make you bitter. You let it make you better. The world teaches people to avoid the shadows, but some are called to walk through them, not to get lost, but to carry light into places others fear to enter. You've stood in emotional tombs others pretended didn't exist, and still, your faith flickered not out, but alive. Psalm 18:28 says, "You, Lord, keep my lamp burning. My God turns my darkness into light." Amatunes. That's why your life never seemed to fit the mold. Why you couldn't relate to the timelines others obsessed over. Why your nights felt longer and your burdens heavier. What felt like isolation was actually consecration. You weren't being forgotten. You were being formed. Have you ever wondered why your process had no blueprint? Why did your deepest breakthroughs come in silence, not spotlight? Why did your wisdom seem to scare people more than your mistakes ever did? Could it be that God was preparing you to carry what others collapse under? In the natural world, there's a tree known as the welwitschia. Found only in the Namib desert, it looks ancient, almost alien, and it only grows 2 leaves in its entire life. But those 2 leaves never stop growing in the driest, most hostile conditions. It continues adapting, enduring, thriving. Most wouldn't even notice it, but it's one of the most resilient living organisms on Earth. You've been like that. Quiet, overlooked, but rooted in hostile soil with a purpose no drought could kill. And still, you rose. You see, the mission you've been entrusted with doesn't come with fanfare. It doesn't seek followers. It seeks obedience. God isn't asking you to be impressive. He's asking you to be faithful, because someone will cross your path who doesn't need a sermon. They need a safe space. And that's what you carry. Romans 8:18 says, I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. That glory doesn't arrive all at once. It's revealed slowly through the lives you touch. This calling doesn't scream. It whispers. It nudges. It waits. And only those with ears to hear will feel it ignite. And if you're still wondering if this really applies to you, just ask yourself this. Why haven't you given up yet? Why? Despite the silence, the loneliness, the resistance, does something in you still feel called? Because you are. There's a chilling moment in the Swedish Christian film As It Is in Heaven, 2004, where the main character, a gifted conductor, collapses in physical pain, just as his choir finally sings in perfect harmony. Beauty costs him everything. But in that final scene, his heart breaks open, not because of tragedy, but because of fulfilled purpose. His death wasn't the end. It was the crescendo, the completion of his mission. That's what your life is building toward. Not applause, not perfection, but impact. A moment when someone breathes again because you held space. A quiet shift in atmosphere because your presence refused to abandon truth. You weren't born to be accepted. You were born to be activated. This calling was never about comfort. It was about transformation. You carry something sacred, and it's not meant to be buried under fear or diluted by doubt. So rise, not because you're ready, but because it's time. The shadows you walked through are behind you now, and the field ahead is waiting for your light. Being chosen has rarely felt like a celebration. For you, it feels more like a weight, like carrying a sacred assignment no one explained, in a language only your soul could recognize. But what felt like heaviness is about to feel like alignment. The shift begins, not next year, not next week, but tomorrow. You didn't choose this day. This day chose you. The 25th of August isn't just a date, it's an activation. A holy checkpoint etched into the blueprint of your being before you were ever born. That's why it won't feel logical. It will feel cellular, like your body knows something your brain hasn't caught up to yet. 1 Peter 2:9 says, But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession. Chosen doesn't always mean comfortable, but it always means purpose. The outside world won't look different. The sun will rise, as it always does. The internet will continue to argue. People will sip coffee and scroll endlessly through their distractions. But something in you will feel tilted, not in panic, not in fear, but as if the inner compass you thought was broken just recalibrated mid-step. What if the pulse you feel in your chest tomorrow isn't random? What if the surreal awareness, the heat behind your eyes, the breath that catches for no reason isn't a glitch, but a signal? Could it be that a spiritual tuning fork built into your timeline is ringing? And what happens when a soul finally vibrates at the frequency of its assignment? Salm 139:16 declares, All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. This isn't a coincidence. This is a convergence. The timing isn't late. It's divine. In quantum mechanics, There's a phenomenon called quantum entanglement, when two particles become so deeply linked that the state of one instantly influences the state of the other, no matter how far apart they are. This is how your spirit has always related to divine moments, not through linear time, but through resonance. This is one of those moments. And here's what makes it wild. This isn't a beginning. This is a return. You've been here before. Not with memory, but with recognition. Moments like this were scattered across your life like celestial breadcrumbs, meant not to make sense, but to wake up a dimension of you that's been dormant. Luke 24:32 recalls the moment after Jesus walked with the disciples on the road to Emmaus. Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us? That's the sensation many will ignore tomorrow, but not you, because you'll feel it. You've spent years trying to figure out why certain days made no sense logically, but changed you energetically. That was never a coincidence. Those were check-ins, hidden doors built into time. Heaven's architecture isn't based on clocks, it's based on codes. And deep down, haven't you always known that some moments were designed to find you, not be planned by you? To solidify this truth, think of Sister Norma Pimentel, a Catholic nun and humanitarian leader who has overseen one of the largest border humanitarian efforts in the United States. Once asked how she keeps going without knowing the outcome, she replied, "Love does not calculate risk. It responds." Her obedience wasn't built on clarity, it was built on internal resonance. Just like yours, the 25th of August has been pre-programmed into your design, not your planner. It's a checkpoint that confirms the path. You're not starting over. You're stepping through. You didn't miss it. You didn't mishear it. You were always meant for this exact alignment. Tomorrow is not just another page, it's a portal. You've reached a checkpoint in the spirit, not by striving, by surrender. So rise, with stillness in your body and fire in your bones. This is not the start. This is the activation of what always lived inside you. And tomorrow is one of those days. Heaven wrote into your bones, not your planner. You may not remember signing a divine contract before your birth, but something deep within your being does. Something in your system knows. That persistent sense of being different. The way you've always carried a quiet heaviness. The feeling that you're on assignment even when you can't explain what the assignment is. That's not a delusion. It's design. Jeremiah 1:5 declares, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." This mission isn't random. It's ancient. It's encoded. There are memories that don't live in your mind. They hum in the voltage between your cells. The tug in your chest isn't anxiety, it's recognition. Tomorrow, the 25th of August, is not just a new day. It's a soul alarm, a reminder, not a beginning. It calls not to start something brand new, but to reawaken what's already underway. Have you ever wondered why you feel strangely awake on certain days? As if your soul knows what your schedule forgot. Romans 8:28 reminds us. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Nothing was wasted. Even what tried to break you was bending you into position. You don't need a name for what you're carrying. You don't need language for what you're sensing. Your mission doesn't require definition. It demands awareness. When that strange pull rises in your chest, that magnetic sense that something is different about tomorrow, don't dismiss it. Don't explain it away. Respond to it. Jesus' most pivotal moments were not always loud. In Matthew 26:38, before the cross, he said, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. There are moments when the weight of your mission registers in your soul, long before it reveals itself in your circumstances. To reflect this, think of the late John O'Donoghue, Irish poet and former priest, whose work bridged spirituality, mystery, and soul memory. In one of his final interviews, he said, "There is a secret and silent memory at the heart of our being, a light buried deep in the clay of our existence. That's what tomorrow touches, the light buried, not forgotten." Could it be that this is the day your soul remembers what your mind forgot? On the other hand, not everyone responds to these sacred signals. Some feel the call and reject it, chasing counterfeit versions of purpose instead. James Arthur Ray, a once celebrated motivational speaker, promised enlightenment through dangerous spiritual warrior retreats. In 2009, 3 people died under his care. Why? Because ambition without alignment is deadly. When people manipulate sacred things for control or ego, the consequence isn't just personal, it becomes tragic. John 10:27 reminds us, "My sheep listen to my voice, I know them, and they follow me." You don't need to force anything, you just need to stay tuned. And yet, deep down, haven't you always sensed you were preparing for something? Something invisible but real, like an internal countdown you couldn't see but always felt. Salm 139:16 declares, "All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." This isn't a coincidence. This is a convergence. The timing isn't late, it's divine. The day is almost here, and this one will not feel ordinary. It will whisper, not shout, but only the attuned will hear it. Tomorrow is not a random page in time. It is a divine recall of your soul's agreement. You are not awakening to something new. You are returning to something eternal. You don't need all the answers. You just need to pay attention. So rise, respond. Remember, the 25th of August remembers you. The only question is, will you remember it? Don't dismiss what you're feeling. Don't try to rationalize it away. This isn't your imagination. It's your memory resurfacing. You're not making it up. You're finally remembering something your spirit never forgot. Your energy is sacred. Not everyone is meant to access it. And yet, as the mission awakens inside you, your spirit wants to pour, to heal, to serve, to move. The energy is rising. You can feel it like fire in your bones, like electricity in your skin. Jeremiah 20:9 says, "His word is in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in. Indeed, I cannot." That's what purpose feels like when it begins to take over. It doesn't knock. It ignites. You'll wake up differently, with clarity, with conviction, maybe even with urgency that you can't explain. And after all the wandering, all the delays, all the dry seasons, something will finally click. But when that clarity comes, will you remember how to protect it, or will you give it away in all directions just to feel useful? This is where many chosen ones stumble, not in their mission, but in their management. Because when purpose hits, it feels like redemption. You start saying yes to everything. You answer every call. You stay up late, holding space for others. You let people spill their pain at your feet, not realizing they never intended to grow, only to transfer the weight. Galatians 6:9 reminds us, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." But weariness comes not only from doing wrong, it comes from doing too much of the right thing for the wrong people. You're not a machine. You're a vessel. You weren't designed to operate endlessly without rest. But when you're finally seen, finally needed, finally activated, you mistake your limitlessness in spirit for limitlessness in flesh. Have you noticed how your own presence disappears when everyone else's needs take up the room? Your body starts to speak. Your nervous system tightens. Your sleep shortens. You become restless. You start confusing overextension with obedience. And when your inner compass whispers, pause, you silence it, not because you're rebellious, but because you were built to care. That's why God keeps calling you back to boundaries. Because clarity isn't endless. It's renewable, but only through rest. Isaiah 11 promises, "But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles." You can't soar when you're carrying everyone else's weight. In nature, the mimosa pudica, a small, unassuming plant folds inward the moment it's touched, not out of weakness, but wisdom. It knows when energy is being pulled from it and protects itself instinctively. You, too, must learn when to fold inward before depletion disguises itself as duty. There's a haunting moment in the Italian film, The Great Beauty, La Grande Bellezza, 2013, where the main character, after decades of noise, fame, and distraction, sits in stillness and whispers, "This is how it always ends, with death." But first, there was life, hidden under the blah. He had poured endlessly into empty crowds, and in the end, found himself hollow. But how many times have you felt that same emptiness after overgiving and called it progress? This is your warning. Don't let the beauty of your calling bury you under the performance of it. You were not chosen to be everything to everyone. You were chosen to be obedient to the one. And even Jesus, when the crowds pressed in, withdrew to desolate places to pray, Luke 5:16, not because he didn't care, but because he knew the difference between being sent and being summoned. This is the moment where purpose meets wisdom, where fire must be paired with focus. Yes, you were made to heal. Yes, you were born to carry light, but not at the cost of your own soul. So rise, not just with fire, but with rhythm, not just with passion, but with protection. The mission is rising, and so must your discernment. You're a vessel not just of light, but of divine architecture. And like any sacred container, if the interior structure isn't reinforced, pressure from within will find its way out. Even the most radiant carriers of light, those who pour, guide, speak, and intercede, can fracture if maintenance is neglected. The world often applauds your giving, but rarely asks about your capacity. That's why burnout doesn't always arrive like a thunderclap. It seeps in through hairline fractures in your soul. It doesn't announce itself with grand alarms. It whispers through your nervous system, shorter patience, longer recovery, unclear direction, and a creeping sense of fatigue that no sleep seems to cure. In neurobiology, there's something called synaptic fatigue, a real phenomenon where overused neural connections begin to misfire due to lack of rest and chemical replenishment. That's what happens to chosen ones who don't protect their energetic flow. You stop receiving downloads. Your instincts feel scrambled. What once felt like divine clarity now sounds like static. You doubt not just your mission, but your ability to hear God at all. Jesus, who bore the weight of the world, retreated regularly to be alone with the Father, Luke 5:16. If the Son of God didn't skip rest, why do you? Could it be that your guilt around pausing isn't righteousness but programming? What if the voice that says, "Keep going or it all falls apart," isn't holy, but inherited from a system that confused busyness with devotion. You've been taught that real devotion looks like exhaustion. But in Romans 12:1, Paul urges us to present our bodies as a living sacrifice, not a burned-out one. What good is your anointing if the vessel carrying it collapses mid-mission? Who benefits when your discernment is so drained that you confuse false urgency with divine prompting? Ask yourself gently, when was the last time you created silence on purpose? Not silence filled with scrolling, or Netflix, or distraction, but actual sacred stillness. Could you sit in the quiet without shame or a creeping urge to perform? Because true restoration isn't passive, it's an act of spiritual resistance. The mystic poet John O'Donoghue, a beloved Irish philosopher and priest, once said, "The soul always knows what to do to heal itself. The challenge is to silence the mind." His words echo a truth we rarely embrace. Clarity doesn't just come through action. It is sustained by intentional stillness. That's what God was teaching Elijah on Mount Horeb, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, but in the still small voice. 1 Kings 19:12. The 25th of August isn't calling you into a sprint. It's inviting you into spiritual precision. Like an athlete entering the calm just before the championship match, the moment where heart beats slow and breath becomes focused, you are being summoned not to move more, but to move smarter. This moment requires regulation, not reaction. The kingdom of heaven doesn't just reward those who serve it, empowers those who sustain. Hebrews 4:9 reminds us, there remains then a Sabbath rest for the people of God. You cannot bear fruit endlessly without nourishing your roots. Even the tree of life in Revelation 22:2 yields fruit, monthly, not constantly. Why do you expect yourself to produce endlessly without intentional rhythm? This next chapter will not require more effort. It will demand more alignment, not just outward obedience, but inward equilibrium. Your strength in this season will come not from saying yes to everything, but from learning when to withdraw with intention. Jesus said in Mark 6:31, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." This was not a suggestion, it was strategy, a divine one. You are not fragile because you need rest. You are wise because you honor the laws of divine energy. In quantum resonance theory, two frequencies can amplify each other only when they are both fully intact. The same applies to you and your mission. When your internal rhythm aligns with heaven's frequency, your influence multiplies without depletion. So, protect the temple. Guard the frequency. Defend your peace like it's your inheritance, because it is. God isn't calling you to die for the mission. He's calling you to live long enough to finish it well. That requires rest, that is active, intentional, and fiercely protected. This isn't about stepping back. It's about stepping wise. As the 25th of August approaches, don't just rise. Regulate. Rewire your pace. Rebuild your boundaries. And reclaim your birthright to peace, clarity, and sustainable power. You are not just a vessel. You are a living cathedral of divine purpose. You don't need to collapse to prove you care. You were built not just to burn bright, but to burn long. Guard the flame. Step into the 25th of August, not as a martyr, but as a mature force. This time, don't just serve the mission, sustain it. Let your inner world recalibrate. Not because it's optional, but because it's essential for your spiritual longevity, your system, body, soul. Spirit has been on high alert for years, absorbing signals, carrying burdens, holding truths no one around you could articulate. But even God's chosen vessels need time to exhale, just like Elijah beneath the broom tree, 1 Kings 19:4-8. There are moments when even prophets collapse, not from weakness, but from the weight of constantly showing up. And in those quiet moments, God doesn't scold. He sends provision. Rest is not retreat. It's reinforcement. Every time you ground yourself in truth and rest, you sharpen your inner frequency. You become clearer in your discernment. You start transmitting wisdom instead of noise. You stop reacting and begin responding from a deeper place. Why? Because real light doesn't flash, it glows. And glowing takes consistency, not performance. In Matthew 5:14, Jesus calls us the light of the world, but he never said light had to be loud, just a present, just steady. Have you ever noticed how silence can speak louder than shouting? That's not a flaw in your design, that's the genius of it. The mission ahead doesn't need your burnout disguised as bravery. It requires your clarity. It doesn't need you spread thin. It needs you sharpened like a blade, used for purpose, not performance. You are not here to become everything to everyone. You're here to become exactly what's needed at the precise moment it matters most. Author and humanitarian Jean Vanier, founder of the L'Arche, Communities for People with Disabilities, once said, "We are not called to do extraordinary things, but to do ordinary things with extraordinary love." His life, lived quietly in service to the marginalized, shaped global compassion, not by noise, but by faithfulness. This is the kind of impact that doesn't show up in headlines, but transforms generations. But let's be honest, there's a reason so few walk this path. Many start with passion, but abandon the process when it stops feeling exciting. It's the same pattern that made Judas betray Jesus, not from ignorance, but from impatience with a mission that didn't unfold the way he expected. Luke 22:3-6. Judas wanted fireworks. What he got was surrender. He exchanged eternal purpose for temporary power, and in the end, it cost him everything. And that's the warning hidden inside this word. Not every moment will feel like a calling. There won't be music swelling in the background to tell you, this is the moment. Some of the most world-shifting choices will feel ordinary, even invisible. But heaven notices, and eternity records it. The 25th of August is the spark. It's the divine invitation. But what comes after that's the fire. That's the long obedience, the devotion in secret, the resilience in silence, the sacred flicker of belief when no one else claps. Because the true mission isn't built on mountaintop moments. It's built in the mundane, Monday, the moments no one but God sees. Can you still show up when it's quiet, when you're unsure, when you're tired but not defeated? Can you hold the line when it would be easier to drop it and start over somewhere else? That's the real test. And the ones who pass it, those are the ones God trusts with legacy, not just applause. The light you carry isn't here to be seen, only it's here to guide. And guiding means you'll walk into places darker than your comfort zone. But the goal isn't to escape it. The goal is to remain illuminated. Romans 12:11 reminds us, never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor, serving the Lord. This is a fire that needs tending not once, but daily. So, as the spark of the 25th of August lights something deep within you, protect it. Don't just honor the assignment, honor the anointing that allows you to carry it. Don't confuse the lack of noise with the lack of meaning. The kingdom of God advances not through explosions, but through steady flames. You are that flame. So protect the fire. Guard the flicker. And when others forget why they started, you remember who sent you. So, what does that look like now? This life after the awakening, after the divine signal of the 25th of August. It doesn't mean chasing another confirmation or waiting for a cosmic event to shake your certainty. You are not here to ride every wave. You are the wave now. What God placed inside of you isn't waiting for permission to rise. It's already moving. What will you do with the momentum? In nature, waves don't question their rhythm. They respond to the pull of the moon, just as the tide surrenders to celestial gravity. Your spirit knows when to rise without needing external validation. You were built for this divine pull. And every time you deny it, your waters churn in resistance. But every time you flow with it, your presence reshapes the spiritual shorelines of those around you. That's what this moment is asking. When truth begins to tremble in your chest, will you speak it, even if your voice shakes? When comfort tempts you into silence, will you still ask the hard questions? Will you pause long enough to hear what others are crying for beneath the surface before they even know how to articulate it? This is not about performing strength. It's about becoming clear. The fig tree in Luke 13:6-9 was given more time to bear fruit, but not indefinitely. The gardener didn't say, "Start over." He said, "Dig around it. Fertilize it. Give it one more year." God isn't asking for a brand new you. He's asking for the buried version of you that's been waiting under layers of fear, performance, and people-pleasing to finally stretch toward the light. And stretching doesn't always look impressive. In fact, it's often invisible, like roots growing beneath soil, messy, unseen. But essentiel. That's what real spiritual growth is made of. Not applause, not spectacle. But expansion. Every time you choose truth over convenience, the mission becomes more alive, even in silence. This isn't about grandeur. It's about consistency. That's how the chain stays unbroken. The same way the ant returns to rebuild after the rain, undistracted by applause or acknowledgement. Proverbs 6, urges us. Go to the ant, you sluggard, consider its ways and be wise. Why? Because endurance is often dressed in invisibility. You won't always feel magical. You won't always feel anointed. There will be days your spirit feels ordinary, but purpose doesn't need to feel poetic to be prophetic. Readiness is not a heavenly prerequisite. It's a myth dressed as perfectionism. What matters is movement. What matters is the small, honest yes. The fragile truth you dare to offer when no one demands it. In the European film La Mappa del Cuore, The Map of the Heart, a priest whispers to a weary traveler, "You don't need the full map, only the next right step." That's divine movement, not the fireworks, not the 5-year plan, just the next honest word, the next faithful moment, the next act that aligns with what heaven has already whispered in your chest. Because when in doubt, that's all God is asking. Not your perfection, not your performance, just your participation. A mustard seed of trust, a whisper of obedience. A single moment where you say, "I'm still here, I'm still willing, and that chosen one is enough." But here's the deeper layer, one that few recognize until it's too late. When God calls you into consistency, He is not merely disciplining your habits, He is architecting your capacity for divine responsibility. You are no longer operating as a spiritual wanderer, waiting for cues. You are stepping into what we might call, in the language of neuroscience, a limbic override. The limbic system in the brain governs emotions and instinctive survival responses, But mature spiritual calling requires you to override emotional impulses in favor of cortical clarity, measured responses rooted in wisdom, not just urgency. Why does this matter now? Because what God is releasing next won't be assigned to people who can only operate when inspired. It's for those who can sustain clarity in contradiction, those who can remain spiritually coherent when the emotional noise rises. The Apostle Paul said it plainly in 1 Corinthians 9:27. I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. Paul understood what many modern believers miss. Divine endurance is a psychological recalibration. It is training your internal systems not to collapse under your calling. This is why rest must be strategic, not reactionary. Why silence must become your sanctuary, not your punishment. Because everything about your next chapter requires what the field of quantum resonance calls stable coherence. The ability of a system to sustain alignment even in the face of energetic disturbance. Your spirit, like a tuned resonator, must now remain locked on the divine frequency, no matter what external signals are being broadcast around you. How do you do that? How do you keep showing up when the inspiration dries up, when the applause fades, when no one responds to the offering you've poured your soul into? It's here where the lesson of the desert becomes sacred. In Matthew 4, Jesus endured 40 days of silence and temptation, not to prove his strength, but to establish the internal infrastructure for what would come next. He didn't perform miracles there. He didn't preach. He didn't heal. He withstood. Because some seasons aren't about what you build outwardly, they're about what gets welded into you inwardly. This type of strength isn't loud. It's forged, like the silent load-bearing beams beneath a cathedral's structure never seen, but carrying the weight of glory. That's you now. You're no longer called to be visible. You're called to be structural. And perhaps that's the very tension you've been sensing lately. The realization that you're no longer living for spiritual events, but for eternal impact. That you're not preparing for a moment, you're becoming the moment. A modern example of this kind of silent weight-bearing is Francesca Cavallo, an Italian author and entrepreneur who co-created the global bestseller Good Night Stories for Rebel Girls. While the world praised the book's message of empowerment, most people didn't know that behind the scenes, Cavallo fought persistent systemic resistance to getting her voice heard as a queer woman in Italian publishing. She once said, "People want your brilliance, but they don't always want your being. I had to learn to be light without setting myself on fire." End of quote. Isn't that the struggle of the chosen one? To be light without burning out in the process, to glow without becoming consumed, to speak without needing to shout. You were never called to ignite everything, just the one thing heaven assigned to you, the flicker that only your hands can steward, the sound only your voice can release, and the chain only your spirit can keep unbroken. That's how you hold the frequency, by showing up when no one claps, by walking forward when the path is invisible, and by choosing obedience even when clarity hasn't caught up yet. That's how the mission builds itself through you. You don't need to see the full map. You are the map in motion. The 25th of August was never the destination. It was the ignition point, the sacred spark where heaven whispered, "Now." And for the first time, your spirit whispered back, "I'm ready." And you actually believed it. If this message resonated deep in your soul, if something inside you stirred, then this wasn't just a video, it was a divine appointment. I invite you to like, comment, and share this with someone who needs a reminder of the mission breathing through them. Your words in the comment section might be the exact confirmation someone else is praying for right now. And if you haven't already, Make sure to subscribe so you never miss a moment like this, because this isn't just content. It's a call to awaken. To those who have supported the channel through super thanks, thank you from the depths of my heart. But even if you simply watched, sat in silence, or whispered amen under your breath, your presence here matters more than you know. Until we meet again, may you walk boldly in clarity, rest fully in peace, and rise daily in purpose. You're not just holding the mission, you are the mission. God bless you.